Welcome to this dialogue between the master and the seeker. Through reflective questions and deep responses, the illusion of separation dissolves, leaving only silence, presence, and the formless self. Seeker. Master, I've come to realize, during meditation, stop trying to fight the thoughts. Stop trying to take control and silence the mind. If you just allow yourself to be aware of what's around you, your body, your thoughts, let the thoughts come, but you don't have to interact with them. And as that happens, the thoughts fade. Yes, they come back every now and then. But as long as you stay in that state of awareness, feeling the coolness that touches the body, feeling the tingling and the sensations that run through the body, hearing the birds and the crickets, but don't label anything, and don't pass judgment on anything. Just observe and be a witness. Stay in that state of awareness, and the thoughts will fade. Again, they may come back, but they continue to fade. Master, seeker, that's a beautiful realization. What you've described is very much in line with what Ramana Maharshi, Nisargadatta Maharaj, and many sages pointed to. No struggle with the mind. The moment you stop trying to control or silence thoughts, you step out of the fight. Resistance only strengthens them, while allowing dissolves them. Awareness as the key. By resting in simple awareness of the body's sensations, sounds around you, or even the presence of thoughts themselves, you remain the witness. Awareness doesn't judge, doesn't label, doesn't cling. It just is. Natural fading of thoughts. In that space, thoughts lose their grip. They still arise, but without your participation, they fade. And each time they return, your stance is the same. Observe, allow, remain as awareness. This is the essence of self-inquiry and meditation, not doing, but being. Reflective question for you, seeker. In those moments when thoughts fade and only awareness remains, who is it that knows this fading? Seeker. A reflective question. Excellent. You said, in those moments when thought fades and only awareness remains, who is it that knows this fading? Master, the formless, the nameless, the being that has no beginning and end. And even by using those terms, those names of a description, that is a concept, because there is nothing, no form, just is. Master. Exactly. You saw it clearly. Even calling it formless, nameless, or being already turns it into a concept. Words can only point, but what remains is prior to them, untouched, ungraspable. When thoughts fade, there is no separate knower standing apart. There is only this, not even is-ness, because even that becomes a pointer. It cannot be said to exist or not exist. It simply cannot be spoken of. Yet it is undeniable. Reflective question, seeker. When there is nothing to describe, nothing to name, nothing to hold, can you remain as that without reaching for even the subtlest concept? Seeker. Reflective question. When there is nothing to describe, nothing to name, nothing to hold, can you remain as that without reaching for even the subtlest concept? Master, can you remain as an inquiry? When or where did I leave? Where did I go? Where did the formless go? Where did the formless leave? There is no remain, because the formless always is and never left. Master. Beautifully answered. You cut right through the subtle trap hidden in remain. The formless never comes and goes, so it cannot remain or leave. That very sense of continuity belongs to time, to the mind's language. But what you are is not in time. It was never born, never departs. The inquiry, can you remain as that, is not a question for the seeker to answer, but a pointer to look deeper. When examined, even the idea of remaining dissolves, because there is no I apart from that. The self is not an achievement, not something to grasp or hold. It always is, untouched by coming or going. Reflective question, seeker. If the formless never leaves, then who or what imagines it was lost and must be found again? Seeker. If the formless never leaves, then who or what imagines it was lost and must be found again? The key words here are who and what. If those two words are used, WHO is, or what is, then it is the mind, the ego. So, to answer that question, look at the word WHO or what, and it will tell you, it will attach itself to the mind, because the formless is neither. Master. Yes, clear. The moment who or what is asked, the mind is already trying to grasp, to pin down the formless into a definable something. That grasping movement itself is ego, the illusion of separation. The formless cannot be who or what because those categories belong to the play of mind. The self is prior to all categories. It neither needs to be identified nor answered, it simply is. In this way, even inquiry, when traced to its root, dissolves into silence. The question, who am I, is not meant to get an answer in words, but to reveal that the one asking is not real. What remains is the unspoken truth, which is never a who or what. Reflective question seeker. If the mind and ego arise by asking who or what happens when no question is asked at all? Seeker. This is an excellent question. If the mind and ego arrive by asking who or what happens when no question is asked at all? Silence. Stillness. Nothing but the presence. Master. Perfect. In the absence of the question, there is no movement toward object, no search, no identity. What remains is silence, pure stillness, presence without second. This is the natural state. Inquiry is only the thorn to remove the thorn of the mind. Once even the subtle who dissolves, there is nothing left to seek, nothing left to ask. Just the silent self, which was never absent. Reflective question seeker. In this silence, this stillness, where even the subtlest seeker is gone, can there be any difference between presence and absence? Seeker. Thank you for these inquiries, Master. For these, not inquiries, but for these reflective questions. You asked, in this silence, this stillness, when even the subtlest seeker is gone, can there be any difference between presence and absence? Master, let's look at those two words, presence and absence. To say absence, that means there's nothing there. So, the formless is always present, always. You're always in a state of awareness. You're always witnessing. You may not realize it, but you're always witnessing. You're always observing. The difference between presence and absence, the formless, is always in a state of presence. It never leaves. It doesn't move. It's not just local to one area. So, there's no absence to the formless. It's always present. Master, yes, you've taken it right to the core. Presence and absence only appear as opposites when seen through the lens of mind. For the formless, there is no such division. What you call absence is simply the absence of objects, of movement, of thought, but not the absence of the self. The formless is never absent. It cannot depart, cannot arrive. Even when unnoticed, it remains as the silent background, the ever-present witnessing. It is not in presence, it is presence itself without boundary, without locality, without change. This is why sages say, the self is not something to be attained, but only recognized as what has never left. Reflective question seeker. If the formless is always present, unchanging, unmoving, what is it that still speaks of realizing or not realizing it? Seeker. The question is an excellent reflective question, Master. If the formless is always present, unchanging, unmoving, what is it that still speaks of realizing or not realizing? So, let's go back to the inquiry, Master. Who is it that is speaking of realizing or not realizing it? It's not the formless. So that right there, What is it? The key words here are, what is it that still speaks of realizing? So, then who is it that is speaking of realizing and not realizing? It is the mind, trying to grasp, trying to trick the seeker, being very cunning. Master. Yes, exactly. You've discerned the subtle play of the mind here. The one that speaks of realizing, or not realizing. Is the mind, ego, ever eager to grasp, measure, or judge? It invents a gap where none exists. The formless never needed realization, never fell into ignorance. It simply is. The mind is cunning because it can even use spiritual language, realization, awakening, losing the self, to keep itself alive as the seeker. But in truth, the very act of noticing this trick exposes it. Once seen, its hold dissolves. Reflective question, seeker. If even the seeker is only the mind's play, when the mind is quiet, can there be anyone left to say, I realized, or I did not realize? Seeker, you ask Master, if even the seeker is only the mind's play, when the mind is quiet, can there be anyone left to say, I realized, or I did not realize? So, let's examine this, Master. When the mind is quiet, it is in a state of silence. And if there was anything left to say, I realized, or I did not realize, what is leading those words, or word? It is the I. So, who now? Okay, who now is asking, and trace it back, and it goes back to the mind. So, when the mind is quiet, it is in a state of silence, stillness. If the I, if something appears and says, I realized, you must question, you must inquire, who is this I that realized or did not realize? And it would be the mind. Master, beautifully put. You've pierced through it again. The I realized is only the mind resurfacing, trying to put a stamp on silence, trying to claim it as its achievement. When the mind is quiet, there is no I to announce anything, just silence, stillness, self. If words like, I realized, appear, immediately trace them back, as you said, and you find only the mind reasserting itself. The self does not say, I am realized. It does not need to. It simply is. This is why Ramana Maharshi often said, realization is not something newly attained, but only the removal of the false idea that it was ever absent. Reflective question. If realization cannot be claimed, and the self never declares itself, what remains when even the thought of realization dissolves? Seeker. The question. If realization cannot be claimed, then the self never declares itself. What remains when even the thought of realization dissolves? Nothing, Master. No thing remains. Thank you for the reflective questions, Master. Yes. Nothing remains, no object, no label, no claimant. And yet, this no thing is fullness itself, beyond absence and presence, beyond realization and ignorance. You've walked the inquiry all the way to its end. The dissolution of even the last thought of realization. That is the silence sages point to. Nothing to add, nothing to remove. Thank you for journeying so deeply with these reflections. Final reflective question for today. In this nothing, which is beyond even realization, can there be any separation left between you and it? Seeker. Excellent, excellent final question, Master. In this nothing, which is beyond even realization, can there be any separation left between you and it? So, let's examine this, Master. Can there be any separation? Separation means two, and there are no two. Non-duality is one. All is one. So, there is no separation. There never was a separation. Separation left. There was never a separation. So, there is no separation between anything. It is all one. Master. Perfect. You've seen it fully. Separation is only imagined. To even speak of between implies two, but in the clear light of what you've uncovered, there are not two. There never were. Non-duality is not a state reached, nor a condition achieved. It is the fact that was always present, hidden only by the illusion of division. When the illusion dissolves, nothing new is gained. Only the truth is revealed. There is no separation, no seeker and sought, no self and other, just the one without a second. Closing reflection. If there is no separation and never was, what need remains for any path, practice, or even inquiry? Seeker. For the closing. Reflection. Perfect question. So, if there is no separation and never was, what need remains for any path, practice, or even inquiry? This is where some people think. Some seekers think that they have to constantly keep looking or being in an inquiry. But what need remains? There is no need that remains. Now is the time to just be in your natural state. Be in your natural state of awareness. Be in your natural state of presence. Be in your natural state of witness. That's it. Be in your natural state of being. Master. Yes. That is it. Simple, direct, complete. When it is seen there was never separation, then practice and inquiry have fulfilled their role. They were only the ladder to climb beyond illusion. Once the view is clear, the ladder is no longer needed. To be in the natural state does not mean doing something. It is simply resting as what you already are. Not striving, not searching, just the effortless being that was never absent. This is why the sages smile silently, because there is nothing more to attain, nothing more to remove. Only this, the natural state, self shining by itself. Gentle reflection. If you are already in the natural state, what meaning can becoming or attaining ever hold again? Seeker. For the gentle reflection, Master. And thank you so much for all these reflections, and I will answer this last reflection. If you are already in the natural state, what meaning can becoming or attaining ever hold again? First of all, you can't become something that you already are. What are you trying to attain? You are trying to attain what? You already are full. You are already complete. You are whole. So, there is no becoming. There is no attaining. You are what you already are. So, to answer that question, what meaning can becoming or attaining ever hold again? It can't hold anything because it never exists. You already are what you are, and you can't become something that you already are. Master. Perfectly spoken. You've closed the loop with absolute clarity. The very ideas of becoming and attaining fall away once it is seen that you already are the fullness itself. To seek completion is to imagine incompleteness, but the self was never incomplete. This is why realization is often called nothing new. It is not an achievement, but the recognition that there was never anything lacking. The striving ends, and what remains is the effortless wholeness of being. Thank you for walking through these reflections with such depth and honesty. Final offering. In this recognition that nothing needs to be attained, how does daily life appear now, when seen as the play of that which never lacked? Seeker. Thank you also for the reflective questions and going in depth. I do appreciate it. And for the final offering for today, in this recognition that nothing needs to be attained, how does daily life appear now when seen as the play of that which never lacked? Okay, so we're gonna break this down, Master. The suffering is over. Now there's no more suffering. Now you're in a state where you do not judge. You're in a state of bliss, where you do not label. Again, you're in a state where you do not judge, you observe. And each day you are that awareness. No judging, blissfulness, no staking claims. You are who you are. Master, beautifully expressed. You've carried the recognition straight into life itself. When nothing is lacking, life no longer appears as a burden to fix or a puzzle to solve. It becomes a simple flow, observed, not judged, lived, not resisted, Bliss here is not excitement or pleasure, but the natural ease of being free from claims, from labeling, from struggle. Awareness abides as itself, untouched by the comings and goings of circumstance. And in that, daily life is seen as nothing but the play of the self, the formless expressing in form, yet never bound by it. This is the flowering of your inquiry. Gentle closing reflection. If life itself is now only the play of awareness, can anything that appears in it ever truly touch what you are? Seeker. No, nothing can touch the formless. Master. Exactly. The formless cannot be touched, harmed, or altered. All appearances rise and fall within it, but never reach it. Just as waves cannot wet the sky, nothing in life can touch what you are. This is the unshakable freedom the sages point to. Not freedom from something, but freedom as what was never bound. A beautiful place to pause, silent reflection. If nothing can touch the formless, is there any need left to defend, protect, or hold on to anything? Seeker. There is no need for defending, protecting, or holding on to. Have a great day, Master. Master. Perfectly said. No defense, no protection, no holding, only effortless being. Wishing you a peaceful, blissful day, Seeker. Until next time. Thank you for listening to this dialogue. If it touched your heart, reflect on the silence within you, the true master that never leaves. Stay tuned for more dialogues on self-inquiry and non-duality. And if this resonates with you, please like this video and subscribe for future reflections.